Hi everybody, it's Sally here. Today I'm just going to show you how to knit a cast-on rag for your LK150 machine. This is my blue one that I made some years ago now. And as you can see, it's a piece of knitting, as I hope you can see, it's knitted on the bias. And you start right over at one edge of your bed on 10 needles, knit sort of 2 or 3 rows to start off with, and then decrease on one edge and increase on the other one. And by doing this simple increase on the edge, it makes this very open loopy edging on the side of the knitting, which you can then use with your transfer tool to poke the transfer tool through the open things on the edge and then hook it onto the machine. And so it can save you using up lots and lots of waste yarn, which if you don't like the idea of using waste yarn, I mean, I must admit I unravel my waste yarn and reuse it over and over again, which is why you see me knitting odd bits of things that got knots in it and all sorts, but they can be very handy. I use mine most if I've got a really wide piece of knitting that I want to cast on, because you can put the cast on rag all the way across and put the weights on it, and then you're ready to go. Don't forget that you must always do a ravel cord separation row between your cast on rag and then your main knitting, whether you're starting again on an open edge with open loops, you're just going to start knitting, or whether you're going to do a closed edge with an E-wrap or a latch tool cast on. So if you forget to do the ravel cord row, the only way you'll get your cast off rag off that piece of knitting is to cut it. So then your cast on rag will be going in the bin. Anyway, so I'm going to use some spare bit of double knitting that I've got. This beigey colour. It's always a good idea to use a fairly light neutral colour for your cast on rag. And I'm just going to start straight off by casting on over 10 needles on the far left hand side of the machine. I'm going to do an E-wrap cast on. So there's my 10 stitches. Oops, bring the carriage over and thread it up. Now, obviously the row counter is right over on the other side. To be perfectly honest, you don't really need the row counter. Just you're going to knit 2 rows and increase, decrease, knit 2 rows, increase, decrease. But let's do, I'm going to use tension 4, so I don't want it to be too tight, and knit that across. And then push all those out to D, knit across again, push them back out to D, knit across again, and then back that away. So now I should have enough there to hook a couple of claw weights on. And from now on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease 1 stitch on the left, so literally move it in 1 needle, and then pull 1 out on the right, an extra 1 out on the right. Now that's going to make that loopy increase. And as long as I've got my Russells on 2, I can pull them out to D and knit 2 rows. So this one's going to decrease and increase, knit 2 rows, decrease, oops, just dropping the stitch, and increase, knit 2 rows. Now you can start to see these loopy increases on the right hand side. Increase and increase, so all the time you're maintaining your 10 stitches, they're just moving across the machine slowly. All you need to do is to carry on till you hit the other side. Now, because you've got 10 stitches on here already, it means you're able to make across the rest of the bed 140 increases on the side of that knitting. So if you wanted your cast on rag to be big enough to fit all 150 needles, at some point or another you'll need to take it off on waste yarn and move it back to the left by at least 10 needles, so you can get the extra 10 loops on the edge of your cast on rag. Alternatively, make two. So that if you do need to cast on over the whole width of the knitting, you'll just need to use 2 rags. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it can pay you to maybe have one of 50 stitches, 50 loops, and one of 100 loops. So you've got a small one and a large one. Entirely your preference. But that's how you make a cast on rag. You just carry on with this process. And then, of course, once you get to the end, you just need to cast it off. So if I just drop this off of here for now, you can see what's happened. So there is the nice loopy bits up the edge of the knitting. You can see from there, which are nice and easy to pick up on your transfer tool. And after a while, once these have been used a few times, they will get stretched out, and so that they get much easier to see. And that's a really quite straightforward method of knitting and casting on rag.